Shalom. It's a unusual experience I'm having now. I've been a rabbi for many, many years, over 40 years. And basically, there's a yearly cycle. And, I'm going to go through the different holidays and I teach different classes and I have different holiday meals and we are going through different cycles and the understanding of the Jewish calendar and the values. And this past year, due to Corona, everything was put on delay. Last Pesach, we didn't have all our classes about Pesach. We had some on Zoom, but it wasn't the same. That the Seder, there were much less people there. It was a feeling of something different, something changed. And at first, I was troubled. And I now, in this most recent few weeks, leading up to this period of preparation for the upcoming holiday of Pesach, I realized that I'm looking at this holiday different than I did in the first 45 years of my period as part of the rabbinate. And I think it's because there was that break. And because of the break, it forced me or it challenged me to look at things differently. I would like to suggest that we, on Pesach this year, spend the time to understand and appreciate that not only is it the birth of the nation, the holiday that gave us the Jewish people, which is all true, but it created something so super special that has lasted over thousands of years. And the question I would like to ask is why? What's special? What made it that we had all these brilliant people over the last umpteen years? If you think about it, very interesting. In the last century, the person who changed our greatest picture of understanding the universe, a man we all know as Albert Einstein, valued so much the Jewish perspective on Torah, on education, on understanding what's right, that he was fearsome. He was afraid, he was full of fear that when there became a national identity to the state of Israel, that they would lose some of that value in embracing nationalism. Nationalism says that we have a national perspective, a national approach, and we don't necessarily value the individual or the specific wisdom. We saw that in Corona. Everywhere where there was an approach to create a national attitude towards Corona, we weren't allowed to ask questions. We had to accept everything blindly. And it didn't make sense. We were uncomfortable with it. A year and a half later, we still don't understand it because we're not allowed to ask questions. The information is kept to a select few. And Albert Einstein felt strongly that the approach to wisdom that is embraced in Judaism is something that the world can't afford to lose. The person who gave us the greatest understanding in the secular world, not in the Jewish world, of humanity was another Jew, Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud, neither Albert Einstein nor Sigmund Freud were religious Jews. But both appreciated that it was because of Judaism that they achieved a great understanding and appreciation of the world. Sigmund convinced his friends not to raise their children as Christians. Sigmund was proud of being a Jew. We have to understand and appreciate that which created us, that which makes us into Jewish people, to be able to understand that our commitment to the Torah, to the education, to truth, comes from being raised as Jews. And that on the Seder night, and I will hope to make this at least a 3-part series where we look at the Seder a little bit differently. I've read it 60 times, the portions of that describe Shmos, Ve'era, and Bo. And nowhere in those 3 portions does it say where any of the miracles happened because the father asked the child anything or the child asked the father anything. And on the Seder night, we spend so much of the time, the beginning of the 15 steps, which are supposed to take us from slavery to freedom, are all about bringing the child to ask questions. And the Manishtana, the child has to ask the questions. We don't do anything till the child asks the questions. Yes, it's important to discuss the Pesach, the Matzah, and the Maror, but till the child asks the questions, we do nothing. The Torah institutes that there are the 4 children going to ask the questions. That comes from the Torah. But it didn't happen in the story of when the Jews left slavery. It happened as the Torah is setting up that this holiday is the holiday that's going to remind us that we were chosen, that we are special to Hashem. And how does that start? With by our prodding our child to ask. There, Dr. Twersky offers a very nice insight. He says, Manish, the child asks, what's the difference and why? On all the nights we come and say, we only Pesach, and the other nights we asks all these questions. And then the father's answer is, Avadim hayinu Paro Mitzrayim. We were slaved to Paro. So the child's sitting there listening. How's that answer? So Dr. Twersky says, is what the father's saying to the child. Slaves don't have a right to ask any questions, my child. Tonight, I'm sitting here, I'm spending time, I'm making you a center of our Seder because of your desire to ask a question, because asking questions is how you create a Jew that has the values that we've been discussing so long in this little video. That's step number 1. From the very beginning of the Seder, we focus on inspiring our children to understand that the first thing they need to be able to embrace being a Jew is to care, to ask, and to try to understand. Think about this. Think about how important it is. Remember, challenging and asking questions, you always have to be careful. Is the child asking because he wants to understand? Or is the child asking because he wants to rebel? He's using that as an excuse. Is the parent answering the question because the parent wants to inspire the child to reach greater heights? Or is the parent answering the question because he wants to stop the child from nudging him? Please, as you go into the Seder, understand and appreciate how important being a Jew is to be able to acquire the proper approach to true wisdom and understanding and Torah values. Have a great day. Hopefully, we'll speak to you next week.